All right, it's my favorite time of every show. Mailbag time. YouTube comments, Twitter. You can become a Locked On Ducks insider, get priority access and other perks as well when it comes to the mailbag. This question came from Darkwing Duck 91. That's a cool I just want to make it very clear. I like the name Darkwing Duck 91. That's a unique one out there. Bo and Dillon Gabriel had similar physical traits, hard disagree, and thus, in my opinion, the offense seemed to run a similar style. How will Stein adjust the offense to take advantage of Dante Moore's physical attributes? So, one thing that I think is really good about the Will Stein offense, it is friendly to any type of quarterback. He had, I think, an average-sized left-handed guy at UTSA when he was the OC before coming over to Oregon, and he was really successful. He comes over, and Bo Nix, most accurate season in the history of college football, Heisman Trophy finalist. Dillon Gabriel, not the same numbers, but still able to succeed. What Will Stein does, whether you like him or not, and I like Will Stein, I'm not saying he had a good day in the Rose Bowl. He definitely did not. But he had a pretty great day, every other game for the most part. No one has a great day every single game, by the way. Just want to throw that out there as well. But I definitely disagree that Bo and Dillon Gabriel had similar physical traits. Bo Nix is bigger with a bigger arm, and he is faster as well. So they are both mobile quarterbacks that have good arms, that are very accurate throwers of the football, which is what Dante Moore can be. But I think Stein's offense can work with any quarterback, really. And I think for Dante Moore, it's a great situation because this has been a high completion percentage offense over the last couple of years. Gabriel and Bo Nix, both in the mid-70s in completion percentage. That is elite. Even if you don't like Will Stein as much as Oregon's offensive coordinator, I think most people understand that he's pretty darn good. That is really impressive to have two different quarterbacks, one of whom is smaller in Dillon Gabriel, one of whom is bigger, one of whom is a first-round draft pick of quarterback, one of whom may or may not even get drafted this year. I mean, one of the reasons that Dillon Gabriel came back to Oregon is he went to the NFL draft and he got an undrafted free agent grade. He might still be there. Maybe he upped himself a little bit. Usually you do when you have a season like the one he just had. There's the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year for the Big Ten champion Ducks. Like that doesn't tend to hurt your draft stock. But I don't think there are going to be any changes. I think the offense looks basically the same. Dante Moore is not the runner that either Bo Nix or Dillon Gabriel are, but he's not immobile. He's not Jared Goff in the pocket. So if in a big spot like to ice the Big Ten championship game, they call a design quarterback run, or on the 3rd and 2 against Ohio State when DG ran it in for Oregon's final touchdown in that game. I don't see why Dante Moore can't do that. Now, he's not going to run the ball, 5 to 10 times a game, but if you absolutely had to have it and you like the look of a quarterback run, yeah, Dante Moore can move. He's a pretty sturdy guy. I think he could take a pop or 2 or 3. Hopefully he doesn't have to take too many behind the offensive line, but I don't think there's any adjustment or change for Will Stein with Dante Moore. I think it's you run the same offense and just teach Dante Moore, as he did last year when he was on the sideline, how to execute it as Bo Nix and Dillon Gabriel did. Speaking of what he'll be playing behind along the offensive line, Kyle sent in this question. Can you do a segment on the size of the 2025 offensive line? Haven't paid attention to average offensive line size, but is this incoming offensive line going to be among the biggest in the country? So, short answer is yes. It might be the biggest offensive line Oregon's ever had. Now, I'd have to go back and, do a 20-year running total, but here are the heights and weights of the guys that I expect to be Oregon's starting offensive line. Isaiah World, the Nevada transfer, 6'8", 303 pounds. That's pretty big. Alex Harkey, offensive tackle transfer from Texas State, 6'6", 335 pounds. Matthew Bedford, who I suspect will be a starting guard for Oregon, along with Emmanuel Prenon, the transfer from USC. They go 6'6", 315 and 6'5", 320. This is where it's really uncommon to have an offensive line that big. You don't typically see guards that are 6'5 and 6'6. That's atypical. Guards tend to have a build more like what Poncho has at center. He's 6'2", 325. That's what he was listed at this past year. So every single one of those guys is at least 300 pounds, and every single one except for Poncho is at least 6'5". That is a hulking unit up front. And without looking at every single offensive line size for all 130, however many FBS teams there are in college football, there are not a lot that have that height and weight listed. However, while I understand the point you're making, and it is wildly impressive, I don't really care about how big you are up front. I really don't. The only thing that matters at the end of the day, yes, size can help. I was too dismissive of how big guys can be up front. But Josh Connerly coming out of high school was in the 6'5" range and 280 pounds or so. Now, he bulked up over the last couple of years, but just because you are big doesn't mean you're automatically good. There are a lot of technical elements to playing offensive line. That's what you have to be able to get right. Do you have good feet? Do you have good hands? Jeff Schwartz is a great follow on Twitter. He talks about offensive line play a lot and all the little details. That's what separates offensive linemen at the Power 4 level from the Group of 5 from the FCS. There are guys that are that big all over the place. Not as many that are, 6'8", 303. One of those isn't walking around every Group of 5 program in the country. But the difference between, Poncho at center, 6'2", 325, guarantee you can look across college football, find guys of that size. Why is he Oregon's starting center? Because he does a lot of the technical stuff really well. That's where the difference, I think, really comes out with offensive line play. But are they going to be big? Yes. Among the biggest in college football? Yes. I think so. And Dante Moore is taller than Dillon Gabriel, so you don't have the issue of him not seeing the field quite as well. And you can put 6'5" and 6'6" guards in there without that concern. So I think that unit can be really, really good next year. I do expect there to be an adjustment period as always. Nick sent in this question. Hi, Spencer. Question. What would your opinion be if I told you I think it would be very smart and beneficial for Oregon to go good on good with the offensive and defensive lines in the spring game this year? I know the norm is that they mix it all up, which is fine. I think with the turnover in the trenches, going good on good every chance they get may help to avoid the start of last year. Well, I like where your head is at for us, as in every single person that isn't at practice every day, where they are going good on good and the staff has a great idea. Like, we don't see the reps on that particular day of what it would look like if you line up those 5 guys and put them against Mateo, Tatum Tuioti, Bear Alexander, and Amari Washington. We don't get to see that. I'd like to, but are they going to do that? I think it would be great for us. I don't think it changes the calculus for how successful they'll be up front. And I also don't think that, not doing it in the spring game is why Oregon's offensive line struggled early in the season. They just had turnover. They just had guys moving around up front. They had injuries as well. Remember, Bedford was going to start, and then all of a sudden he got hurt at the last second. That threw a wrench into things, and they shifted Poncho to guard and thought they could go Charlie Pickard at center. Then they realized that wasn't working very well, and once they shifted Poncho to center, everything settled down. So hopefully they avoid major injuries up front. I do feel good about their depth if someone does get hurt, which happens, fairly regularly along the offensive line, more than just, hey, this guy got dinged up and has to come out for a few snaps. I like Oregon's depth a lot. You got Davey Ulie as a 6th offensive lineman. Kavika Rogers played this past year, has got a history at tackle as well if he needed to. Janoris Wilson is going into his 3rd year and has played real meaningful snaps and looked really good. I mean, he had some blocks in the Big Ten championship game where he was moving Abdul Carter out of the way. He had the angle on him, but I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. So I like where Oregon is at up front with the offensive line a lot. A mailbag question one of you should submit for next week maybe is, which line unit is better next year?